Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of y'all that do not know me, my name is Miata Ade Lebele and I am here on this channel doing a review for all of the episodes of Shadow and Bone. If you've already missed my other reviews, I've already done episodes 1, 2, and 3 as well as a full season review, so you can find that on my channel. Before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, thumbs up, do all that fun shit, please. I love y'all so much. Thank you so much for all of the engagement you've given me already. This has just been an amazing ride. If I seem low energy, I do apologize. It is Sunday night and I just watched the Oscars and they were some of the worst things I've ever seen. Yes, I'm also wearing a stupid ass hat. Y'all, this was an episode about trackers. Mal's doing a lot of tracking. Before I did these reviews, I bought a bunch of Russian hats and this was also like a tracker hat. And I'm like, I'm gonna buy it. Maybe this will come in handy. And it did, bitch. You know who needed a hat in the wilderness? Mal. None of them were wearing hats. They were gonna die of pneumonia if not from bullet wounds. That's insensitive. We love you, Mikael and Dubrov, and we will miss you forever. Okay, y'all, let's jump into this episode. So right away, the first shot is, soldiers kind of crossing the land as they go to war, basically. And Mal is one of these soldiers, and he's writing to Alina. And we learn that he's written to her 3 times and hasn't heard from her. Wow, what an interesting choice. Now, for those of y'all that don't know, in the books, Mal and Alina are both writing to each other, and Alina's not hearing back from Mal. And we don't know at this point that Mal is even writing to Alina. It is such a choice to me to already give away that their letters aren't reaching each other, because as an audience, you then can guess that someone is intercepting their letters, and oh my God, who has incentive to keep these two apart? Oh! It just is a little frustrating, especially on my rewatch, to really be like, you guys were giving away so many clues about the villain of this season, and I really wish they had left a couple different things in the dark. Now, the reason why this does work for the story is it does open us up more to who Mal is. Again, we didn't get that in the books. Mal in the books was, hard to read, and when he did reunite with Alina, the relationship didn't quite work. This works a lot better to build up their relationship, to see him come to terms with the fact that he is falling in love or has been in love with Alina for a long time. But because he says things like, "Dear Alina, haven't heard from you. This is my 3rd letter to you." Because we know Alina is not receiving his letters, we now understand that someone's keeping his letters. And that gives some stuff away. So yeah, I understand why they wanted to, tell us that Mal had also been sending her letters. That is something that comes up eventually, but it also, I think, gives away the secrets pretty quick. Basically, Mal lets her know that they're being sent to Chernost, which is a town in Ravka that the Fjordans have been attacking. He mentions that he's been trying to reach her for a really long time. He tried to bribe a squaller who laughed in his face. He asked his lieutenant to get word to you, and before the lieutenant kicked him out, he was like, "Malik, who is this girl to you?" And Mal realized that he didn't know how to answer that because he didn't know who Alina was to him anymore. Not only because he's found out that his best friend is the Sun Summoner, but also because, she's no longer just your friend, right? If you're starting to realize that you have feelings for a person, who do they become to you then? One of the coolest things that we see is as he's walking, there's a picture that basically says Sancta Alina. The people have started worshiping Alina as a saint. Mal's obviously heartbroken that he's not hearing back from Alina. We're now kind of back at the war camp and they're all sitting around and their lieutenant is giving them orders and he's basically like, "Hey, look at this shit. The Darkling actually wants us to go after Muratsova's stag." Now, this would be considered absolutely crazy. This is a mythical creature. I'm guessing Grisha probably don't even believe in this. And so the First Army, again, the First Army are people without power. The First Army is upset because all of a sudden they're having to do Second Army mess. So yes, the First Army's pissed off that they're gonna have to send some of their best trackers out into the wilderness to search for something that no one even believes exists. So he tells them this and everyone laughs thinking it's ridiculous, but then he holds up a picture of a stag and Mal instantly recognizes that this is a picture of Alina's. Alina has been drawing the stag her entire life. So he sees right away that Alina drew this and somehow he knows that Alina is connected to needing the stag for whatever reason, and he knows that he wants to go on this mission. He knows he wants to go on this mission especially because whoever tracks down the stag will get a visit to the little palace, and finally Mal has it in to see Alina. Back in East Ravka, Alina's kind of laying in her bed and tracing the scar on her hand when Genya pops into the room. She asks Jenya if any letters have arrived, and Jenya tells her no. But Jenya also lets her know that she's about to go horseback riding with the Darkling. And obviously Alina's like, I don't need to be horseback riding and gallivanting around, I actually need to be training. He also was like, yo, I don't really want to be hanging around here because Zoya's gonna pop up and basically beat my ass at some point. And Jenya lets her know that Zoya's actually been sent away for what she did to Alina in the last episode. Then Jenya presents Alina with this gorgeous black kefta. Black is the color of the Shadow Summoner. Black is the color of the Darkling. And Alina doesn't want to wear it because she thinks it's going to set her apart from all of the other Grisha. So yeah, she's walking out of the little palace and she sees the Darkling and obviously is like, why don't you wear the kefta? And she's like, it would set me apart already. And he's like, what is so wrong with wanting to be set apart from other people? Kind of have a little discussion, but guys, I didn't even write it down because I was so upset. Because as they're getting on horseback and they're about to go away, he says, call me Alexander. I'm sorry, what the fuck are you talking about? This is gonna be a rant. I'm not even gonna, this is gonna be a rant. His name is Alexander, right? His name is Alexander. However, he doesn't ever give away his first name. In the books, he never gives away his first name. It is actually one of the most tender moments of all, I think in the very last book, when he is laying down wounded and the only person he has ever felt an attachment to or a kindred spirit with is Alina, and he told her his name, I think in book 2, and she would never say it. She refused to say his name because she didn't want that kind of connection. But as he lays there, and I think he's dying, he's like, please say my name. Please say it. And as he's like dying, I think she says like, Alexander. She says his name to him as he is going because they are connected, and no matter how awful he is, they always will be connected by the fact that they are the two most unique humans on the earth, right? Basically being the Shadow Summoner and the Sun Summoner. And what they do sets them apart and alienates them from other people. So he felt a connection to her and she felt a connection to him. And that was what's so interesting about the relationship in the books, because even at the point where she went, he is the worst person on earth, she always felt a pull to him because of what they shared, because of the power they shared, because of the alienation that they shared. First off, for him to ask her to say his name just in a courtyard, just willy-nilly, and for her to just start saying it, because she does eventually in the first season. I know this doesn't sound like a big deal for those of you guys that haven't read the books, but it would literally be like, I don't know, if Darth Vader walked in like movie 1 and was like, Luke, I'm your dad. Like if there was a Star Wars book and we found out that Darth Vader was Luke's father in like, you know, book 2, but in the movies, they decided to put it in like scene 3. It's that bad. I'm not even kidding. It is like that level of like, oh. So that sucked a lot. I screamed at the TV. I had to pause the TV. I have in my notes, no, 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 no. I hate this. I hate this. I hate this. And it also just breaks up so much of the tension between them. Their relationship should grow. Their relationship needs to grow, and then it starts to splinter apart. But even as it splinters, there's like connective tissue between it. They're never quite ever separated. And it just kind of sucks that like by not having us like earn all of that like growth and the tension between them, their relationship for me just doesn't work. I don't care about their relationship at all. I'm done with the fucking rant, but I know there are other book readers who had to have screamed at their TVs at that point. I know y'all are out there. The crows have finally arrived in East Ravka. And I actually love this. I love that we get lots of humorous moments with the crows. I love them, you know, Jesper says, well, that went well. And we get that flashback to everyone screaming from the previous episode. Just like excellent comedic timing going on with pretty much everyone in this scene, just like 2 thumbs up. The group learns that there is a winter fete that's gonna be held at the little palace. So basically they've gotta figure out if there's a way that they can get into the palace under guise of being there for the winter fete. As it's figured out that there is a nearby archive that actually has maps of the entrances of the little palace. So they actually are, you know, they get really excited because they're like, it's heist time, it's heist time. And we do love our crows when they go on a heist. Jesper's so fucking cute. Like, this was when he really, again, episode 3, episode 4, when he really started to gel for me. Him leaving like a tender word with Milo the goat. Just so fucking cute. It's so unnecessary. The showrunners, the writers didn't have to do it. I love that they just had silly, stupid moments that kids would do. It's just wonderful. So I love having this like levity at this part of the show, and I'm really glad that Jesper gets to do all of it. So as Kaz is coming up with a plan to get into the archives and get the map, he tells Arkin that he needs to come up with a plan for them to get into the Little Palace. Meanwhile, the Darkling's doing his version of seduction or some shit with Alina. He takes her to like a fucking fountain, like in the woods or some shit, and he walks around all like, yeah, I'm broody and sexy. I know, listen, I've already seen people comment saying you are wrong about the Darkling. Listen, I'm not saying Ben Barnes is not sexy. I am fully think that the man looks fantastic. He looks good in black. My husband literally said, that man's hair is gorgeous. Like, we're watching the scene and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I just don't see it. And my husband's like, yeah, but like, he's got great hair. And I was like, okay, my husband's on Team Darkling too. Like, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm not gonna ramble about that. So anyways, the Darkling is trying to win over Alina, you know. He's telling Alina that her real self has finally emerged. He asks her if she's adjusting to life in the Little Palace. Of course, she like tells him that training is going okay, but it's really hard to tell with Baghra, and he's like, yeah, don't I know it? Yeah, you fucking know it. Yeah, you fucking know it. They're doing small talk, and he asks about her room, and she says it's great, and she's so glad she has Jinya, and they're just doing like a little small talk, and he's obviously looking for a way in to kind of like relate to her and maybe start flirting with her. In the same sentence where she says, you know, it's so good to have Jinya, but she says, I don't know where this road leads. Like, she does not know what her life is supposed to be right now. And he tells her he completely understands that he used to run away all the time because he's a descendant of the Black Heretic. As a kid, he used to wish that he could be literally anyone else but a descendant of the Black Heretic. Yeah, right, motherfucker. And as they're walking around this fountain, there's actually a depiction of the Black Heretic story on the fountain, and Alina starts to tell the story. The old king hired the Black Heretic, who ended up wanting more power. The king, fearing a coup, actually put a bounty on the Black Heretic's head. The Black Heretic, being hunted down, decided to try to create his own forbidden army, using the forbidden ways of Murat Sova, but he failed and he created the Fold instead. Alina ends the story, as everyone else has, that the Black Heretic was killed by the creation of the Fold. The Darkling then explains that he has been spending his whole life to erase the sins of his forebearer. But unfortunately, he is always seen as the problem by everyone else. I mean, obviously they're gonna blame him. He's already Grisha, and then he's literally a descendant of the Black Heretic. So he's just like, woe is me, my life's so bad, like, girl, you don't even know. And Alina's like, oh, that's what I see in your eyes. You think I'm the solution to your problems. You think I'm the solution to everyone's problems. But what happens if she fails? If she fails, what, then everyone turns on her? And he says, you know what? I won't let that happen. That she and him, they are going to change the world. Lord have mercy. I'm sorry. I wish I could be more excited about this, but the whole time I'm just like, girl. But I get it. Alina has probably never had a man pay this much like interest in her. She's been in love with Mal for fucking forever and he's never seen it. So I totally get it when a dark, brooding, hot man is like, hey girl, like, you are so special. You and me are alike. No one else is like us. Like, let's change the world together. Let's be together, basically. I get it. I would absolutely be drawn to this man. I get why she's drawn to him. It's just like so obvious to me that he's evil that I'm just like, girl, can you not see the evil? Can you not feel the evil? Like, what's happening here? And cut back over to Mal, and he's writing to Alina saying it may be his last letter to her for a while because he's on his way to track the stag. He says that he understands that somehow the stag is connected to her. And his beautiful little, dumb little, wonderful little buddies, Mikhail and Dubrov, decide that they want to join him, and they're so sweet. And I'm really sad that what happens to them at the end of this episode happens to them because I really enjoyed them so much. Like, normally I don't like the Three Stooge type of like dynamic in anything, but these guys were actually really good guys. So they decide to join him on this absolutely cursed journey. Back in training, Baghra is trying again with Alina, and Alina is just fucking struggling to get some light to shine. And every time she doesn't summon, she gets a hit, she gets a hit, she gets a hit. I've seen a few people very, very confused about why in the world like the scratch thing works to get your powers to summon. Basically, pain, sudden pain, can get you to summon your power, right? It kind of like shocks your body, and your body tries to protect itself by summoning its power. Baghra's basically beating her. Just beating that girl, beating her with everything she got to try to get her powers to finally like really come out. Eventually, Alina does summon like a little bit of light. Baghra's just like, girl, it's not enough, and she basically sends her out. Later on at dinner that night, Marie is trying to make her feel better. She's like, hey, listen, like Baghra had to like set a whole hive of bees on me. and it worked. And Alina is just like, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Mal's gonna help me. When Mal gets here, Mal's gonna help me. And you just see in her face that like she's trying to keep the hope up, but she sent how many letters at this point to Mal? Like 9 and nothing back. Like she's losing hope that Mal is ever gonna arrive at the little palace. Meanwhile, Cass has come up with a plan to break into the archives. It is the silliest thing I've ever seen in my life. He is dressed like a Scottish Frenchman. It's a silly little outfit. I am so sorry if this outfit turns out to be like the royal outfit of Denmark. I am so sorry if that is what is happening here. He's wearing like a tartan, like a Scottish looking tartan, but like a little beret. Again, if you are Danish and this is real, I'm so sorry for y'all. I'm not sorry that this is your outfit. I'm sorry I called it a Scottish Frenchman. So basically Cass walks in a disguise and he walks up to the front desk of the archive and he's like, hey, I'm a sculptor and I need some plans for the little palace for, you know, I'm designing something at the Winterfell. And this man, he clearly looks suspicious, but he's so tired of his own fucking job that he's like, fine, I'll get him. Sir, due diligence, ask for some ID. Ask for some ID. I'm gonna need to see a face scan, some shit, like do something. But now the man's like, all right, I'll get you what you need, okay. Then Cass does something that is physically impossible. As the man walks away to go to the archives to get the little blueprint that Cass needs, Cass flicks a piece of paper covered in phosphorus and somehow he flicks it in such a way that it lands under the man's foot. And as the man is walking around, he starts leaving a trail of phosphorus all around the archives, which will then let Inesh know where the archives are and where everything is kept. So that night is when the heist happens. Now look, y'all, I would describe it, but I'll just imagine a lot of heisty shit happens. I can literally not go through all of it. Cass was talking so fast that I was like, I just could not keep up. So I'm gonna describe a little bit to you, but like, y'all know what happens. It's a heist, like y'all know what happened. Jesper gets in there first and he turns out all of the lights. And after he turns off the lights, Inesh is basically able to kind of sneak in, follow the path with the phosphorus, get into the room, find the blueprints, and then she makes a copy of the map. It's so cool seeing Inesh like this. She's such a fucking stealth-ass ninja. I love this character so much. The guards immediately recognize that the lights were turned off and that someone has to be in there, so they get in there. And again, Inesh, stealth-ass ninja, like hiding behind the guard, ducking down. They never see her. It's amazing. So the guards leave, but they re-lock the latch, so she's stuck in the room. So then Jesper is actually somehow in the room too. Somehow he comes in, waits for the clock to strike, which makes a loud sound so he could then shoot the latch, and Inesh is free. She leaves the archives and we're thinking she's about to get caught. She's gonna have to kill a guard. Of course, it's Cass, and our group gets away scot-free. I thought it was slightly too easy. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm so used to heists having such heightened stakes. This felt so easy to me. So I was just kind of like left a little like, I could have just used like slightly more almost getting caught by guards. I could have used just slightly more like hijinks, you know what I mean? I love a heist. I do love a heist. I'm just like the crows. So I think I could have just used like maybe a few more guards almost catching them, or you know what I mean? Just something more. They got in and out so easily that I was like, yo, like I'ma do it. I can do this shit. We now cut back over to East Ravka in the Little Palace, where Fyodor has been summoned by the Darkling to his office to discuss the fact that Nina has been missing. The Darkling tells him that basically he sent Nina on his top secret mission like months ago and she's been missing for a while, and he asks Fyodor to kind of go out and see if he can figure out what has happened to Nina. This is very, 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 very different from the books. In the books, Nina was actually trained by Zoya after the events of Shadow and Bone, like a few years later. She actually mentions in the book that she was too young to take part kind of in the Great War. When the Little Palace was under siege, she actually was spirited away with all of the other children. So she's actually quite a bit younger than like Mal and Alina and the other characters. However, they've obviously aged her up for this story. They have made her a part of kind of everything going on, which is totally fine. But I just want to let y'all know there is a difference there. However, Nina is a spy. She is a spy in the Six of Crows books for sure. That's what she was doing before for the Grisha. So that part is still true. In a very short and slightly confusing scene, we kind of watch the crows and they have a map now and they're kind of discussing how there's no way in or out of the Little Palace. And as they are discussing this, an acrobat at the front of the room falls from the stage, and then the camera pans over to the conductor who has like a little smirk on his face. So then we're like, oh, what's happened here? I found myself very confused about this scene. It's so short, it's like 30 seconds long, and I couldn't even quite catch what they were saying. But I knew the conductor had to have had something to do with why the acrobat fell. Now cut back to Mal and the boys, and then, you know, they're kind of near the border near Fjorda, and they're still tracking the stag. And Mal is obviously so good at tracking, and he's looking for it, and they find some like deer shit, some deer scat in the woods, and they realize that it is magical deer scat, and it is so funny to me that as they exit the woods, that Mikaih realizes that Dobrov picked up some of the deer scat, because he's like, yo, I'm gonna sell this later on. I can sell this magical deer shit. And at first Mikaih is like, oh, that's so stupid, but then he realizes it and he's like, yo, I want to cut. I love these boys so much. I hate that the show made me love them so much to do what they did to them. Over the voiceover of the scene, Mal is still writing the letter, and he says that he is gonna find the stag for Alina, and that is the one thing that he can give to her. Now the story goes back to Nina in the ship. Okay. At this point, I started to get a little frustrated, I think, with the back and the forth and the back and the forth. If you've seen my overall review, this is where I thought we could have started like spacing out the Nina stuff a little bit more, so that like we could just do more like with the crows, we could do more stuff with Alina and Mal, which is a much more interesting storyline. And then eventually we can get the shipwreck. I don't know. This was the point where I went, oh, a third storyline now? Okay. I know we had Nina in the last episode and that was fine, but for me, this was just another moment where I was like, I don't know. I didn't think we really needed this particular scene that I'm about to describe, just because Nina and Matthias do so much of their bonding on land, and they could have had these conversations while they were on land. You know what I mean? I didn't need to have it in the belly of the ship. Anyway, back to Nina and Matthias. Okay. So Nina is being held captive on this ship, and basically Matthias brings her food, and Nina knows immediately something is up. Why the fuck would a Driscoll try to feed someone that they think is an evil witch? And she realizes that he wants something from her, and she's not gonna eat his food. She also thinks it's probably poisoned. He eats some of it, shows her that it's not poison, and she's like, no, you want something from me, I'm not gonna eat your fucking food. And he does want something from her. He wants answers. This is something, as much as I complain about Nina and Matthias, I am glad to have a scene at least where Matthias is starting to think about all the things he's been told about Grisha and starting to wonder if those things are true. First off, he is definitely attracted to Nina, but he doesn't quite understand how Grisha work. I mean, he's just been indoctrinated his entire life to believe they are evil. So he goes down to her and he's like, were your parents Grisha? Were you born Grisha? Are you Grisha by choice? He's not answering any of his fucking questions. She's like, you don't really want to know anything about my people. You're trying to absolve yourself so you don't feel bad about the fact that your people are taking me to be killed. And he's just like, of course we are. All Grisha want to do is kill Fjordans. And she's like, the only reason we kill Fjordans is because you're trying to kill us first, idiot. Eventually it comes out that what he really wants is information on the Darkling. And Nina's like, yo, I'm not a traitor to my country. I'm not going to tell you shit. And you can kind of see on Matthias's face that he respects that. He respects the fact that she's not going to be a traitor to her country. That honor, that is a big deal to people from Fjorda. And so that's when he's just like, okay, I'm not going to make you say anything. And he tries to feed her again. And as he's feeding her, she takes it in her mouth and then spits it back in his face and says, I'm not gonna take scraps from you. And when Matthias says, oh, you will, I was like, is this scene sexual? I didn't even get that this scene had like sexual undercurrents. I kind of did, but not really. But my husband was like, yo, are there sexual tension between a prisoner and like the person who has imprisoned her? And I was like, that is kind of bad, huh? Yeah, I guess like my fantasy being played out on screen is not good, huh? Yeah. I also just, for me at least, I already feel more sexual tension. Again, it's bad. I feel more sexual tension between like Nina and Matthias as she is literally in the belly of a prison ship than I feel between Alina and the Darkling, and that should not be. I should feel a pull and push and ooh, some goody shit between Alina and the Darkling, and I don't feel it, and I'm so mad about that. So we're back in East Ravka with the Crow's crew, and they're all super depressed at the bar because they don't know how they're gonna get into the winter fete, and Jesper is still missing his little goat Milo. But Arkin fucking comes to the rescue, like amazing. Arkin fucking comes through, y'all. Arkin has found a group of traveling performers who are going to the winter fete, and just so happens that they lost their star performer in a freak accident. Fucking Arkin! Man came through. I mean, he did possibly maim and or kill a woman in order to make sure that Inesh could like take her place, but the man came through. So Arkin brings over the troop leader who, you know, and he's like, hey, you guys need a new performer. We got one. Looking over at Inesh. For those of you guys that do not know, Inesh actually comes from a family of acrobats. Like, this is what she does. That's why she's so good at her job at sneaking in and out of stuff. This is what she does. So it's actually so beautiful that we get to see like her audition and get to see her go up the ropes and be so gorgeous. And I love that at the very end of the performance, everyone's clapping, but the camera stays on Kaz's face. I almost wish we could have just stayed on Kaz's face the whole time. Cause like, Kaz loves her. And like, how wonderful is it to watch the person you love do what they were basically like born to do, just watching their body fly through the air. I kind of wish we got even more moments to watch him just look at Inesh. After the performance, you know, Inesh is in and Jesper tries to walk up to the troop leader and be like, yo, so like, you know, it's a team thing. We gotta go with her. And the guy's like, nah, we don't bring around stragglers, bitch. Like, what you got to offer? Everything. Jesper has everything to offer. Jesper sits down in a chair, not facing the stage, and he has like a little mirrored tray in front of him, and just looking at the mirror behind him is able to shoot a card out of Inesh's mouth. And I love my babies so much. They're so good at their fucking jobs and they're so talented. I want to squeeze them. And then the troop leader looks at Kaz and Kaz is like, bitch, nah, I'm not doing this shit. I'll make my own way. I'll see y'all on the other side. While back at the little palace, Alina is still struggling to summon a larger light, basically. And Baghra is like, bitch, I'll just do this myself. And she drugs Alina with some tea. And Alina starts to hallucinate back to her days in the orphanage. Basically, she's hallucinating back to the day of the testing. So if you remember on that day, Alina and Mal are trying to run away from the Grisha who come to the orphanage to test them as children. So they come into the kitchen and Alina's like, yo, we gotta go on the run. Like, maybe we can't hide, but we can run forever, because she does not ever want to be separated from Mal. And as Alina is turning in the kitchen, she accidentally knocks over a mug which breaks on the ground, which alerts the woman who runs the orphanage to where the children have been hiding. As the children are walking into the room to be tested, immediately the Grisha see that Mal has a cut on his hand and can't be tested. At this point, my husband didn't quite understand why Mal couldn't be tested. Again, if you're already in pain, then the Grisha prick probably won't do anything to make your powers come up. So that's why it's important for you not to have any injuries on your body when you get tested. So once Mal has basically been disqualified, they ask Alina to come up and they tell her not to be afraid. And Alina, smart girl that she is, has picked up a shard of that like mug that broke and is cutting her own palm with one hand. So when they do the prick, nothing happens because she is already in pain. And that's when we learn that she basically cheated on the test. But for Baghra, Baghra's just like, you're holding yourself back, bring forth some light. And Baghra brings up a really good point. She's like, Alina, how many more orphans need to occur for you to finally face the truth about who you are and what this country needs? At night, Alina can't really sleep, so she kind of starts wandering through the little palace, and whose door happens to be open with a, you know, real hot, dark general leaning against his war room table. Is it the Darkling? It is. Tells her to come in, offers her a drink. I was like, well, damn, like he's trying to put some moves on her. Okay, Darkling. I'm so tired. I'm trying to keep my energy up. Okay, horny, 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 horny. I feel great. And he starts to tell her a little bit about what's going on in Ravka. He tells her that at this point, that Ravka can only win their civil war if Ravka is united, and that their own people are turning their backs on Ravka, and he's been fighting this war so long on his own, and he's just always been so alone. As he's talking to her, you know, his eyes are filling with tears and his power is filling up the room because this man has seen so much and he's lost so much. And Alina kind of reaches out to touch him, and her powers amplify, bring light into the room, and kind of also quell his darkness. And he looks back at her and he's got these beautiful tears in his eyes, and she's looking at him, and obviously like that is the moment for them where I think they really start to feel a connection to each other. Alina tells him that he isn't alone, and then he like gets her face in his hands and he like pulls her to him. Guys, that was actually hot. I'm gonna say I needed a Darkling who was grabbing faces. Like, I want to see a man just be like, girl, come here, come here, come here. Don't give me any of the like broody, not talking stuff. Like, be broody, but when we're in private, pull my hair, bitch. And he tells her that he's been waiting a long time for her, and obviously they are sharing a very intimate moment, and Alina feels, you know, a little uncomfortable with it, and she's like, hey, I should go. Back on the high seas, back in the boat, shit's getting real rough. The ship actually may fall apart. So Matthias is back in like kind of like under the ship with all of the prisoners, and he's talking to his superior, and his superior is like, listen, if this ship falls apart, you've got to kill all the prisoners. We do not want them having access basically to their elements if they get out. And Matthias is shocked by this. Matthias actually has a really good heart, and he is a very honorable man. So to hear that he's gonna shoot shackled people before they get a trial actually really like starts to worry him. Back in the woods, Mal and his friends are still tracking the deer, and it is so cold and so awful, and they're actually about to cross over into Fjerda, which is incredibly dangerous. And he tells his friends, he's like, guys, you have a chance to turn around. You should turn around. And of course they don't, because they're wonderful, wonderful, amazing guys. And they're like, no, we're with you, okay? We're going, we're getting a cut of this. And Mal is still writing to Alina, and he tells her in his letter that he wishes he could have told her the things that he should have said sooner. He doesn't say the things he should have said sooner, but at this point, Mal, I think, has fully realized the depths of his feelings for Alina. Back at the little palace, Alina is outside waiting for mail from Mal and still nothing from him, and she's so broken by this. We have this kind of like montage where she's thinking about the fact that Mal has abandoned her and she's hurt, and she's thinking of all the moments that they've had while they were growing up and how they're growing apart from each other. She thinks of when Baghra told her that needing anyone was weak, and this actually fuels her. This is the pain that Alina needed to really summon her powers. And she goes to Baghra, and using all of that hurt, she finally summons light, more light than she's ever summoned before. And Baghra, looking real pleased with herself, is like, good girl. Now the work will begin. Back in the woods, Mal is writing to Alina in the dead of night, and he's telling her that, like, when she summoned light in the tent, he heard a high tone, something that he's heard with her before. And he hears it even now calling to him. I love that they put this in, actually. I love that they're setting up why Mal is such a good tracker, how Mal is such a good tracker, and what this is gonna mean about Mal. I like that they're setting this up right now. So I like that they talk about the fact that he hears something. It's something that calls him. It's not just like an instinct or whatever. It's partly that, but he's hearing something, literally drawing him to the amplifiers. So hearing that tone, he leaves the tent and goes outside and he hears an animal grunt. He hears a grunt. So we know that the stag is nearby. And boom, an ambush. They're fucking ambushed by the Fjordans. And then this entire battle ensues, and it is actually really awful to watch. So initially the guys kind of like overcome the Fjordans and they're trying to fight them off, and they kind of shoot a few in the head. However, the Fjordans have a Gatling gun, which is basically like a little machine gun type thing, and they shoot at Mal, they get Mal, and they basically overtake our guys. And the way they just completely brutally kill Mikhail, he gets stabbed with the bayonet, and I don't even remember how Dubrov dies. I was just like, fuck, man, fuck, this sucks to watch people that we came to like die. And that's part of it. That's what war is. The show is not shying away from that, and that's important. But it just is like, RIP. Guys, I don't have a drink near me, so everybody just like pour one out metaphorically for our guys Mikhail and Dubrov. Right after that moment, we then have Alina in the bed tracing her scar, and Genya comes into her bedroom and she asks Genya to erase the scar. Mal finally kills all of the other Fjordans. His friends are dead, and he just cries and tells them how sorry he is. But he gets up because he hears a noise, and he turns around, and it's the stag, and it's just the most gorgeous creature you've ever seen. We then cut back over to Alina, whose scars are literally being erased from her hand as she looks with tear-filled eyes towards the black kefta that is on her wardrobe, and we know that she's gonna make a choice to kind of become more like the Darkling. Really strong episode, you guys. I loved watching Alina come to terms with her hurt at Mal, just as Mal is coming to terms with how he feels about Alina. Isn't that the worst? Like, she's trying to move away from him as he's moving closer to her. I really liked the framing of this episode quite a bit. I really thought they did a great job of making us feel connected to characters like Mikhail and Dubrov, because, like, yes, I want to feel gutted when people die in this show. I should feel gutted. I think they did a great job. The actors did a great job. I really adored those two characters. I loved getting to see Inesh do some acrobatic shit. I loved seeing Jesper do some more sharpshooting stuff. That was a lot of fun to get to see the crows do some stuff. However, at this point, this is my point during my watch through, and even as my husband's watching for the first time, where like just having Nina and Matthias' storyline, this is where it started to be like, hey, I get it. Like, let the shipwreck happen, and then like, let's be done with them for a little bit. This is where it started to get to be a little much for me. Am I excited to have Nina and Matthias? 100%. It's just, at this point, we now have 3 storylines, and the story doesn't need all of that. I think what we're getting from the crows is so good. What we're getting from the Shadow and Bone people is so good. I would just love to stick with them for a little bit as opposed to going through all 3 storylines. Okay guys, I made it. I made it. After the Oscars, I still made it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm sorry I couldn't be as hype as I normally am. I am trying, but y'all, a bitch is struggling. I love you guys so much. Please remember to like, subscribe, thumbs up, please share. I love you guys so much, and I will see you on the next episode. Bye.